Time has stood still in Mozambique for the last 30 years. The country is the sleeping giant of tourism. With her awakening, opportunities have arisen to get involved in some of Africa's last untouched wilderness. Now is the time to board the antique stream-driven Mashangulu Express for the business opportunity of a lifetime.
What we've just seen is a 20-minute film done in 1995 in order to convince the government of Mozambique to give the concession for what is now the Elephant Coast, a 900 square mile park development. And what we have now, we're going to tack on about 8 minutes of raw footage taken from helicopter of the area and just give you some comments so you can get a little bit better idea of some of the terrain. We're starting our trip. We're over Maputo, the capital of Mozambique, used to be Lorenzo Marques, and we're looking east, and out there about 20 miles is Inyaka Island and the peninsula, and from there we're now on that coastline. It's about 100 kilometers or 60 miles down to the South African border, and the Elephant Coast project is 900 square miles between Inyaka and the South African border. And what we're seeing here is the typical terrain on the peninsula, which is 40,000 acres of the 580,000 acres. There are, this is an important point here. Inyaka's on the left and the peninsula on the right, and there's a bridge across there. Anyway, the development, the 40,000 acres which we're seeing here is part of it. It's got 30 lakes, and the idea is to create a wildlife sanctuary and then sell lots to what we call the Learjet set that would come and live inside this sanctuary with elephant and buffalo and lion walking around, which is a unique thing that's never been done. If you see a little ponta there, there's about 12 of those in the 60 miles. It's a straight beach, but every so often there's a little ponta, which is Portuguese for cape, and they add a little interest, but the coast is quite beautiful and rugged. And that's the Indian Ocean. This is Ponta Avril, one of the first pontas from the north going south. And the last one, when we get down to the south end, is Ponta de Oro. So we're going from Point Avril to Cape Avril to Cape Gold. And this is the dunes here are interesting. They reckon they're the highest dunes in the world, vegetated dunes, and that green vegetation you saw is what keeps them in place. This is one of the larger lakes. There are 30 lakes on the peninsula and another 8 or 10 larger lakes down in the south area. This is typical. We're looking south on the coastline, and this is kind of mid or low tide, but at high tide the water comes right up against the beach, and if you were up here with a four-wheel drive and got caught, your car would be underwater because you can't get up over the dunes. There's the helicopter, and this helicopter is available in Mozambique, and that's the way you get around. There really isn't, you could see this thing in 2 or 3 hours, but if you had to drive it, it'd take you a couple of days. And right here, this is Point Shiminkan, and we're looking north, and from this point to the north is the 40,000 acre peninsula and Inyaka, and behind the camera is 540,000 acres, which is the large game park, which altogether it's called the Elephant Coast Project. It's quite good fishing here. The Mozambique Channel has got some of the best sports fishing in the world, and also there's good scuba diving. There you get a shot of the dunes. These dunes are up to 500 foot high, and the wind comes in off the ocean and it's dredged it up, and then it's become vegetated, and it's quite stable. This is Point Mamole. This is, you see some buildings there. This goes back to Portuguese days. These are all abandoned now. There was a lighthouse and all, but this is getting fairly close to the South African border to the south. You see there's a building right there. That'd be a good place for a lodge, sheltered. It'd be there looking west and with its swimming pool, and then the people that were game viewing could walk around and go out on the beach. The idea is to keep the beach as it is, no traffic on it, only foot traffic. Once again, you're seeing, they talk about them being vegetated dunes, and this is the type of vegetation that keeps these very high dunes in place. And on the whole 900 square miles, the highest point are the dunes. In other words, the area to the west of the dunes is rolling country, but it tends to be lower than the coastal dunes. This is a good shot. Now, this is a place where you would put a game lodge, someplace like this. We're looking south, but you want to be sheltered from the sea, and you could imagine that the game lodge, the people would go out and go to the west, and they'd have the swimming pool to the west, but they'd have this view of the beach, and they would be able to walk down there at high or low tide whenever they wanted. But the idea is not to develop the beach. The idea is you're developing it as a game park. Now, way up in the north, on the inner bay, there will be some like a Club Med type things, but they will be inside the bay, not out on the Indian Ocean coast. This is Punta de Oro. This is the last of the 12 puntas. In other words, we've come about 100 kilometers or 60 miles from Iñaca. And this town is when the Portuguese left, it's semi abandoned, but there are people a few Europeans in Maputo that come down here on the weekend. Anyway, this town would be inside the 900 square miles, but it would have a fence around it so that hyenas and lions and elephant wouldn't be walking the streets. Here we have a hippo. There's several big lakes, well, and both on the peninsula and in the bigger lakes on the south area, there are hippos and crocs, and we're going to see in a minute some elephants. There were about 600 elephants in the 173,000 acres that was the Maputo Elephant Reserve before the war, but they've been shot out to where they were about 100, and they will come back. Of course, now we're going to create a park that's about 3 times that size. So if it had 600 before, you could say that the elephant population that could sustain might be 1,000 to 2,000 with the large park. Then the other idea is that the 900 square miles only goes to the Maputo River, but the center of plant diversity, which we're trying to protect, goes far to the west to Swaziland, and the next time around we're going to try to expand it to something between 3,000 and 4,000 square miles. So that would also be more territory to save some endangered African animals. Look at the little guy falling in the ditch there. He's getting up. Here he comes. He's getting back on his tricycle, and here he comes. The elephants, you don't catch them out too much because they've been shot during the war, and this is out in what they call an inundated grassland, and they come out and eat there. But the elephants are animals that do a lot of their feeding at night, and it's kind of rare to catch them out here now once the park got going. Now you see the old gal there, that's the matriarch. She was about to turn. She was going to fight, and then she decided, well, flight was better, and she went ahead. But that helicopter that's buzzing over, she doesn't like it, and she's leading her tribe away from it all. One of the features is it's such open country. Now this is the Maputo River, which is the current boundary on the west that makes 900 square miles, but the idea is to go across the river and go due west, and then we'd have 3,000 to 4,000 square miles.